Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping way back in time. Way back, straight into the ancient African savanna. We're going to witness the thrilling, completely terrifying, and honestly deeply fascinating daily survival of humanity's earliest ancestors. Imagine a world where literally every single day is this profound test of endurance. No cities, no written history, absolutely no guarantees. We're going to walk alongside an early tribe through a landscape just packed with hidden dangers, sudden environmental shifts, and deadly predators. Today, we're uncovering exactly how these early humans managed to endure against some seriously impossible odds. Let's dive in. Picture this scene for a second, because it really sets the stage for our entire explainer. The morning hunt is already in full swing. Suddenly, the tall grass explodes with movement. A band of early hominids is racing through the golden savanna, clutching these rough stone flakes in their weathered hands. And they aren't chasing glory here, right? They're chasing sheer survival. There's a wounded antelope staggering ahead of them, and circling vultures are casting these dark shadows on the earth below. It's a grim warning that any delay is going to invite stronger predators to steal their prize. But by working together, they actually managed to drive the antelope into a muddy stream, slowing it down until the exhausted creature finally collapses. A massive win. But before they can even take a breath to celebrate, a deep, earth-shaking roar from a massive saber-toothed cat echoes across the plain. Just like that, victory became panic. So who exactly are we looking at here? Let's ground ourselves. We're talking about Australopithecus anamensis, one of humanity's absolute earliest ancestors, living roughly 4.7 million years ago. To stay alive, they relied on really rudimentary tools. Think rough stone flakes that took weeks to shape. And, most importantly, group cooperation. In this harsh ancient world, they didn't have sharp claws, they didn't have overwhelming size, and they certainly didn't have armor. When that saber-toothed cat roared, they just had to abandon their feast. They grabbed whatever small strips of fresh meat they could and fled for the rocky hills, with mothers desperately gathering frightened children onto their backs. They lost the bulk of the carcass to the predator, for sure, but they escaped with just enough food to survive one more day. And that narrow escape brings us to Chapter 1 of Forced Migration. Abandoning that kill pushed the tribe way out of their familiar territory, kicking off a completely unexpected and grueling journey into the unknown. This journey beneath the relentless sun was brutal. The rivers had shrunk into these muddy little pools, and dry winds were carrying thick dust instead of rain. Every single step demanded caution too, because you had hidden snakes resting under stones and giant crocodiles just waiting beneath the quiet waters. But look at how they actually pulled off survival on the march. It's fascinating. Adults dug for edible roots using carefully sharpened sticks. Others were cracking open hard nuts with rounded stones. To stay hydrated, they'd collect precious dew and water on broad leaves right before sunrise. And when this endless march inevitably resulted in cuts and injuries, they used bitter herbs to soothe the infections. Every single action was a calculated piece of a shared survival puzzle. A few days later, the wandering tribe spots fresh footprints beside a riverbank. They aren't alone. They've bumped into another tribe. And the strangers had reached the water first, meaning their gathering grounds were overflowing with berries and reeds, plenty to sustain a lot of mouths. This sets up a wildly tense, totally wordless encounter. Two silent tribes, one shrinking river. Remember, no words existed between them. It was all tense movements, raised arms, cautious circles, and warning displays. Fear is spreading through every member of our wandering tribe, but absolute hunger is pushing them closer. That river literally stood directly between survival and starvation. Right when you think it's going to boil over into a fight, the environment intervenes. Section 2, the raging river. Suddenly, dark clouds swallow the light, and a violent storm turns that quiet river into a raging torrent in minutes. With the river flooding and trees bending under these powerful winds, the rival tribe scatters for higher ground. But our wandering family is struggling just to carry their frightened infants across the rapidly rising water. And then, a young child slips. The current pulls the tiny body downstream towards some tangled branches. Watch how they respond, because it's immediate. 3 adults rush into the flood without a second of hesitation. First, one guy anchors himself securely around a tree root. Second, another reaches deep into the rushing water with desperate determination. Third, the smallest hunter actually manages to seize the slipping child just moments before both are pulled under the crashing waves. Finally, by forming this incredible living chain, they manage to drag each survivor back onto solid ground. It's an amazing rescue, but, the ancient savanna doesn't really do what it does. The storm ends, but it leaves behind a wounded world, where floodwaters have washed away all the edible plants. Worse, there are fresh tracks covering the muddy earth. First come the hyenas, then the giant vultures, and finally, following the scent of weakened prey, the enormous saber-toothed cat returns. Which brings us to chapter 3, facing the predator, and this time there's nowhere to run. With zero chance of escape across the open grass, the tribe retreats toward a rocky outcrop scattered with fallen boulders. Their defense prep is urgent but perfectly coordinated. They immediately hide the children away in narrow, safe crevices. The adults start gathering every single heavy stone they can physically lift. They take thick branches and harden them in small fires kept alive beneath the overhanging rocks, then tie sharp stone flakes to those wooden shafts with plant fiber to craft crude spears. And through all this, every pair of eyes in the tribe remains completely locked onto the approaching beast. The great pack advances without an ounce of fear. I mean, look at this matchup. On one side, you have the predator, crushing weight, terrifying physical strength, and deadly claws. It leaps onto the rocks and immediately knocks down one hunter to display its sheer dominance. But on the other side stands the tribe, armed with heavy stones, crude spears, and something far more dangerous: coordinated unity. When a hunter slams a heavy stone against the cat's skull, the beast turns instantly, forcing everyone backward. Blood is staining the rocks now, and pure panic is threatening to break the tribe apart. But they don't break. Instead, they move as one in this desperate counterattack. Let's break down the mechanics here. First, several hunters deliberately distract the predator from the front, risking their own lives. While the cat is totally focused on them, others climb up above the beast carrying massive stones. At the perfect synchronized moment, they release the stones simultaneously. The crashing rocks completely stun the giant animal, and this gives the tribe the split second they need to strike from every single direction with those sharpened wooden spears. The predator fights back with terrifying strength, but this battle proves one crucial thing: cooperation is stronger than claws alone. Eventually, silence returns to the rocks. The beast has fallen. Section 4, The Dawn of Unity. In the quiet aftermath, the exhausted tribe tends to an elder's wounds using crushed fragrant leaves, while the children silently absorb these intense lessons of survival. Fast forward a bit. As the seasons slowly change, the landscape starts to heal. Fresh green shoots emerge from the rain-soaked earth. Small animals come back, birds fill the skies again. Even that rival tribe reappears across the distant plain. But this time there's enough life for both of them. After all that intense struggle for survival, the flood and the battle, we get this beautiful moment of peace and coexistence. Neither group challenges the other. Imagine them that evening, resting beneath a sky blazing with countless ancient stars. They're sitting beside a small fire, sheltered by the very stones that saved them. Shadows are dancing across weathered faces, marked by hardship and courage and survival. Infants sleep safely against their mothers. The hunters are carefully repairing their broken tools. And quietly, the elders pass along the silent wisdom of movement, memory, and endurance. They do this entirely through demonstration, not speech, transferring the vital knowledge of how to survive in this incredibly beautiful, yet totally brutal world. So all this brings us to a really profound question to reflect on. What was their greatest weapon? Think about everything we just covered. This early band of Australopithecus and anamensis lost their food, crossed deadly floods, faced starvation, confronted rivals, and survived a brutal attack from one of the greatest predators of the world. But they didn't do it with incredible physical strength. They didn't do it with blinding speed or sharp claws or heavy armor. It was never strength. It was never speed. It was unity. This whole story brilliantly illustrates how cooperation was humanity's absolute earliest and easily most powerful survival tool. Every single time they faced disaster, whether it was pulling a kid from a raging river, sharing scavenged roots, or coordinating a really complex counterattack against a massive predator, they survived strictly because they relied on each other. I want to wrap up this explainer with a really powerful thought directly from our source material. Long before cities, kingdoms, or written history, these early ancestors carved the first unwritten legend into the African savanna. Not with words, but with footprints, courage, and the unbreakable instinct to protect one another against a world that offered survival only to those who stood together. It's a striking reminder, isn't it? The very foundation of modern human society, our ability to collaborate, to defend, and to heal each other, was forged 4.7 million years ago in the golden grasses of the savannah.
So if our survival once depended entirely on this unbreakable instinct to stand together, how can we apply that ancient unity to the challenges we face today? Thanks so much for joining me on this journey.